In 1975, French philosopher Paul Virilio published Bunker Archaeology, a photographic documentation of the abandoned concrete fortifications of the Atlantic Wall. These massive structures, built to repel an invasion that eventually came, were left to decay along the coastlines of Europe. Virilio was fascinated by them. In 1998, a friend handed Jonas from Djupviks Elektronik a copy of Virilio's Speed and Politics. It became a lifelong influence, and during the pandemic, that influence became a Eurorack module, a bunker simulator combining an overdriven digital reverb tank with a frequency-driven tremolo circuit. The original bunker was a brilliant concept with some rough edges. The static control only really worked in the last 10% of its travel. The filter was crude. Feedback couldn't be modulated. Jonas has spent the years since learning more about circuit design, and the Mark II addresses all of that. Proper wasp-style filter with resonance, CV over feedback, a rebuilt static circuit, and a clock output for those irregular rhythms the module generates. I've been following Djupviks' work for a while now, and when Jonas mentioned that the Mark II was coming, I wanted to give it a proper look. Usual disclaimer, Jonas sent me this module, but no money has changed hands, and Jonas has no editorial control. And this module is available as a pre-built in a limited run of 30, along with an album that Jonas has created. For more info, see the YouTube description, or indeed follow Djupviks Elektronik on Instagram. Let's dive in and have a walk through the features and then a little bit of a listen to Bunker Archaeology 2. Let's start with signal flow, because understanding the normalization here unlocks how flexible this module actually is. Signal comes into Bunker on the left. That feeds the reverb section. The reverb output is normaled to the static circuit. That's the tremolo VCA side on the right. The main output at the bottom gives you both sections in series, but you can break that normalization. There's a dedicated reverb out if you just want the grainy lo-fi reverb on its own. There's also a static input. Patch something in there and you've disconnected the reverb from the circuit. So therefore you can actually use this as two independent processing units, one side on the reverb side and one on the tremolo side. Let's look at the reverb section. Input attenuator at the top. This matters because the reverb tank, a BTDR3, is being pushed hard. How hot your signal is changes the behavior, not just in terms of distortion, but of the whole character. Digital oscillators tend to run hot, so you might need to back this off. I'm using an analog square wave here from the Eurorack Cycle 5, and Jonas actually recommends putting a VCA before the input as well for more dynamic control. Here I've got a filter and a VCA via an envelope on the IntelliGel tangrams, controlling the level of the oscillator input as well. Now, the filter is where the Mark II diverges significantly from the original. The old acoustics knob was a basic frequency control that affected how the static circuit behaved. Now it's a proper wasp-style filter with a blend between high pass and low pass. Similar to what you'd find on something like a Sistral. And crucially, it now has resonance as well, which the original lacked entirely. There's CV control over the filter cutoff as well. Now, feedback controls how much signal gets fed into the reverb tank. Crank it and things get really intense. Jonas mentioned setting it so it's glowing hard but doesn't get too crazy. The original had this knob, but no way to modulate it. Now there's a CV input for feedback, which opens up a lot of possibilities. Envelopes, LFOs, or feeding it interesting signals to see what happens. Hint, hint, I might use audio rate later. Okay, let's talk about the static section. This is the frequency-driven tremolo that gives the module its distinctive character. Now, I'm just coming out of my filter directly into the static so you can hear what it sounds like on its own. The division switch sets the overall speed. 3 options. Though the pitch of whatever's feeding it also affects the response, as you can hear. Higher pitches create faster chopping. The CV input here works as a backwards VCA. Voltage high closes the signal down, voltage low lets it through. It expects 0 to 5 volts. The original's control knob only responded in a narrow range. Jonas rebuilt this from scratch for the Mark II. So now you can dial in subtle static with a fast clock or proper hard chops across the full travel of the knob. One thing the manual for the original mentions, feed this CV input an audio rate signal and you get ring modular territory. Yeah, it's nice. So that kind of gives you these bell-like tones or bit crushing, depending on the division setting. That's possible because Jonas used a fast transistor-based optocoupler rather than a sluggish Vactrol. The clock output here is new. It gives you the irregular clock driving the static circuit's VCA. These kinds of irregular frequency-derived rhythms are hard to get from standard clock sources. Now you can send them elsewhere in your patch. So, what's gone? The modulation switch and knob from the original are gone. That circuit used an LDR to short out the reverb tank, creating interference and noise you could shape into drones or percussive sounds. It had to go to make room for the filter improvements and the CV control. If you loved that specific trick, it's worth knowing it's not here anymore. Get yourself the original. Okay, that's all we needed to look at on the front panel. Let's run through a patch and listen to this thing. So that's our first look at Bunker Archaeology 2. So who is this for? This is not going to replace your Strymon module or your Valhalla plugins. If you want pristine shimmer or lush reverb tails, look elsewhere. The BTDR chip at the heart of this thing is being pushed to its limits. Jonas mentions having a graveyard of them that didn't survive testing. What you get is character, grainy, lo-fi, unpredictable. A reverb that responds to how hard you hit it. A tremolo circuit that generates irregular rhythms you can clock other modules with. Something that sounds like transmissions from a crumbling concrete structure on the Normandy coast. If that's the territory you want to explore, check out the links below. This module is only available pre-built and as part of a package which comes with an LP that Djupviks put together. And this is from a first run of only 30 modules, and this is one of them, so there's 29 left. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.